I wanted to make another few videos of my little book of watercolours. Now that's the size of a small Midori traveller's notebook. I made this years and years ago. I made it to get several books in A6 size, so I could still get a couple of books in there as well. So my little book of water-based watercolours, I've had it quite a few years. I've revamped it and it's still looking a little bit tatty, but I love it. But it's so easy if your hands don't work very well. I wanted first to say that it's not originally my idea. In the 1980s, a gentleman called David Cook was a Derwent demonstrator, a wildlife watercolour artist, and he used the Derwent watercolour pencils, the original ones, I think. So these were the original Derwent pencils, and then they came out with this set. A few years ago, a lady on YouTube called Jenny Belly made a little travel book. I think it was out of an old Filofax, and she made little circles of colours. And at the same time, Peerless were coming out with their watercolours. The Peerless watercolours were really easy because all we had to do was cut the squares of colour and stick them in a book. Any size you wanted, A5 size, A6, this is A6, A5 is double that, and then A4 if that's the colour of your sketchbook. The size of your sketchbook, sorry. My little book has now grown quite chunky. So I have all the Peerless, the full range of Peerless in there, which are very easy to do. It's always a good idea to label them and do a colour swatch next to it, so that you know that these colours, especially with the Peerless, they look so different than they do. But the colours are very vibrant, and even if you just had the Peerless, you'd still have, I think there's about 40 or 50 colours, so you do have a good range. But I decided that I had, instead of carrying 72 Derwent watercolour pencils, which I have in a beautiful box, which is twice this size, 72 Inktense pencils, Derwent waterable sketching pencils, 24 Derwent graphic tint, I like Derwent, but Faber-Castell, water sticks, and countless others. Instead of carrying all this, which I can't even lift now with my hands, I decided that if you could do it with one little thing, we could do it with everything. So I came up with, originally, a rather tatty photo view book, and I cut each, if I show you this is basically what it was. So I cut down every page to make another page, so out of one photograph sleeve I would get 2 pages, and I cut every one of them. The only difference is trying to cut them with a scalpel or anything neatly was near impossible, and so they were always a bit scruffy. And because of the way the Polly Pockets work, some of the pockets were backwards. But this was the prototype, which was stuck in with sellotape very, very roughly. And all I needed in between each piece of plastic was a piece of cheap photocopy paper, the printer paper. So I just stuck in with sellotape. It's not going anywhere. I mean, I arrived this out when I was making the other one, but because it was kind of neatish, I left it as it was and stuck it in here. So there are 3 or 4 sheets of the original one, because it just works that I had one at either side, and I didn't want to start taking all these off. Now, I originally put them on pieces of, and this is sketchbook paper. It isn't expensive sketchbook paper, but it's the Sea White. Cass Art do it, Paper Chase do it. I think these are from Paper Chase in the natural colour. Most art shops do it, and I say it's not the expensive one, but it's good quality. Do not use watercolour paper because watercolour paper absorbs the colours, and we want the colours to sit on the top. I don't know if you can see, these colours are sat on the top. Now the Derwent watercolour pencils are 72. I haven't revamped these. This is how it's been for 3 years. But what my intention would be, especially like this one, when this was finished, I could pull it off and put a new one in without destroying the whole page. I thought these sketchbook paper would go to mush, and it hasn't. Even when that was quite well wetted, it's still in good condition. Stands up really well. Now these are the Inkten's. And again, they looked like these. They were the bottom section that every particular one was used. This is 4 years old nearly. 3-4 years old. And it lives in my handbag, it goes everywhere. So all I've done is re-scribbled over the top of every single one. And so they look almost the saturated, the colour is on the top one way and then another, and you just literally scribble across the top. And I've labelled them because then I can go straight to the colour. The black one there doesn't look brilliant, but what's this one? This is Lagoon, which is the blue one, and that's the blue, and that's the blue. But the Inkten's, that's the Lagoon. So I know that I can get this pencil with that number on it, and I can go to that swatch, colour swatch, and I can re-scribble over the top. Now I've done quite a good job with that one because you can see I'm doing that, and not much extra colour is actually, even if I do it on the edge, you can see that's the difference. I have the 72 Inkten pencil. And then I have the Graphitint, and the Graphitint I have Regent because I've used them quite a lot. And then the Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2s. They've been used quite a lot because they are quite vibrant as well. Just recently found this tin in my stash, and I thought, well, if it's water-based and it's good quality, it'll go in there, which it did. I mean, the colours are really vibrant, and I thought I would do really neat squares because it would look really, really nice and really professional. So, I mean, I used a line reader, but it had a really big square. The only thing is to do make sure that you use a baby white in between each one, because these beautiful watercolours, they're like a crayon. They will contaminate each other, hence you need the plastic between. But as long as you do have plastic between, you'll be fine. This is the Hydrus Derwent watercolours, which are amazing. But there again, who wants to carry all these around with them? So I put a couple of drops, and this is only an experiment. And then I can have a couple of drops that are not going to squish everywhere. Everybody's tried these Dr. Martin's pH Hydrus Fine Art watercolours. They are so vibrant. I've used these several times, and as long as they're protected, that colour will dry and then will not go anywhere. And there's 30 colours there. And then, not to be outdone, again, I absolutely adore, sorry about that, they were the Neocolor 2s that I used. They are quite chunky, but again, who wants to carry this round? So that's another set I've got in there. There's 15 there, and then I have the original little Diddy ones, but some of these I've had. Oh, this is one. I don't like my hands. I've had the little original ones for 25, 30 years. So I've had them a long time. But if I do get the full set in there, I think there's 100 and some, I will have 600 colours. So that's my aim, but I hope he's retiring soon, so that's not an option at the moment. I love these watercolours. They are beautiful colours. So I decided, I did make a video of this, but not very well, I'm afraid. But I did make a puddle. I think they get very dusty. I've made a puddle of watercolour with a fairly large brush, not a really tiny one. Made a big puddle of water, and then I scooped it up and I daubed it on and twisted the brush. And then I took some more and I daubed it and I twisted it until I had a really fat layer. And I really left it really, I would call daubed on, really, really daubed on. And there's quite a nice coating on there. And of course the beauty of these, but I mean, again, I can't carry this, I can't hold this. I've dropped it twice and they've been all over the floor. And they're far too precious to do that with. So even when I'm home, I use them in this because I can just about hold this. And the beauty of them is the gold is really, really lovely. Any good quality water-based the pencils are the easiest to put in than the crayons. Whether they're Faber-Castell or whether they're Neocolor 2, whether the Derwent. And other people have brought them out. If it's good quality and you can scribble them, you can get them in a little book. So that was my other ideas. I used a really fine paintbrush. The scruffy one had to be remade, and I found these from Paper Chase for £1.50. They had a really, really stiff cover, and they had middle loading pockets, which made them really easy. So all we had to do was to take a sheet of photocopy paper, cheap photocopy paper, fold it in half. I'm a bit of a tight Yorkshire lass, and I don't like expensive. I love expensive watercolours, but I don't like expensive things that are then going to be just hidden or glued over. What you do is you cut down there. If you cut that like this, and it's not straight. You could do it a lot neater than this. My hands really don't work with these scissors, and I have a lovely cutter in there. But so basically, you've cut your. If you cut it that way, it would have been A5, but you've cut it lengthways, and then all you do is you take this and your polyphoto viewer or photograph, and there is a little gap at the top, and if you make, because I have so many in here now, if you want to label them, you can make a small piece, put some sticky tape to it, and then push it down with a very fine paintbrush to the bottom. Mine move about a little bit, so the easiest way would be probably to label it on here and then push that further up, and then make a crease further up, and then you will just be a bit short, but it wouldn't make any difference, because when you have your sketchbook paper, this is the sketchbook paper from the little book. I'll get rid of those now because I don't need them. So I've pulled that out of the middle. The paper that I have used for 3 or 4 years in here. I have cut them up into squares. But I was thinking we didn't need to do that. If you were going to make your templates or just divide up your page, all you would have to do is to cut your sketchbook paper to size. You could have one at that side with your colours because it's protected from the plastic, and one at that side because it's protected from the back. So you have 2 pages. But if you really wanted to get the most out of this, because on the other side, the idea is that you don't even have to make the squares and cut them up and scribble them in. Now some colours will last longer than others, because these are smaller. If I work quite small, and that's the size of my paintbrush. It's a 10, a 10-0. So all I would need is a fine pen, a fine pencil, and this, and then I have got all my favourite supplies. And I think because it's lasted a long time is because I will use a purple Derwent watercolour with a purple Derwent Inktense, and then I will do a green from the Peerless. I mix every single colour up. If I want a red, I look at the reds. If I want a green, I look at the Caran d'Ache. I look at every single one. The only ones I don't mix up are the Derwent Graphitint, because these colours are muted colours and I just love them as they are. But I use this watercolour set for sketching, doodling. I do, excuse me, there is a puppy trying to get in and a puppy trying to get out. Because I use it fairly dry, and I think again that's why these last a long time, is I don't saturate the paper. I use it on the Bible journaling. This is another test page for a really thin, and I wanted to see if it would go through. Now the Inktense are quite they show through, but the Derwent watercolours do not show through as much, and that's because they are quite pale, and I use them as a pale watercolour. And these are the Inktense Derwent watercolours. I also use it in my Midori. You could cut, well actually this sketchbook was one of these, the same make, but it was an A5. And as everybody knows that make their own inserts for Midoris, or fake Midoris, then all you do is you just cut the strip off the edge, because there's about 2 inches. And it's a lot easier to buy a book already made, and then you can round the corners if you want, or just cut the strip off and use that for test pages and things. In fact, the strip would make perfect squares for the colours. And all you need to do is, this is what this paper is made of. You could even just do the back few pages. Do the back few pages and scribble the colours that you have and label them. Because if you label them, you don't have to make them again. You just have to go over them. Especially with the crayons and the pencils. With the watercolours, I'm not sure they would last as long. But with definitely the pencils and the Neocolor 2 crayons, because they're good quality, and you don't, you see that's been used but not very wet. I don't throw lots of water. So if you're a watercolourist that likes to work very wet, you would have to, you can still use this, but what you would do is take the colour you wanted and then use the plastic between as a palette. So you have a palette for every page. And once it's dried on there, it will dry and you can reconstitute it as you could on an ordinary ceramic little dish. If that was watercolour in there, you could just let it dry, then put water back to it and it would come back again. You don't have to cut. I cut lots of little squares to fill in, and then I realised, well, actually you don't need to do that. It could be, instead of an all-day job, it could be favourite supplies. If you're going away in the weekend and you think, I want to get this done, I want to get this done. I do apologise about that. All you need to do. So that was the idea for the Midori. You don't even have to do anything, just scratch the colours in the back. As David Cook did. He had his sketchbook, he wanted to take it out, take the colours out with him when he was sketching. So what he did was he just took the colours that he thought he might use, and he scribbled them at the back of his sketchbook. And that's all he did. And I just realised I can't do that very well because my hands don't work very well today. And then he would find another colour to go with that. And of course the beauty of doing this is you can put two colours together if you really wanted to. You couldn't do this with the ink tints because although I've re-wet those and used them quite a lot, once they're wet, you couldn't wet it all over and then use them. I use mine in sections. Having said that, I was very, very, very surprised that my ink tints, and I've used them an awful lot, they have not let me down. You can't even see where I've used them, and when that patch went pale, I just went somewhere else. Very similar to the pencils. They looked exactly the same as the pencils, but obviously there's no colour here. So when the ink tints look like that, that would have been dried, but I still had pale colour from other sections. But if you wanted the vivid colour, the original ink tints colour, you go a bit further up where it wasn't worn. Just the same as this one. If I go here, I'd have a paler bit, but if I go into this bit here, I would get the intense colour from the original Derwent pencils. But as everybody knows, the pigment in them is so wonderful that, and the same with the Caran d'Ache. Where you've already been, you'll have some colour, but where you want to be more, you go into another patch that's not been touched, and then you know you're going to get, just like touching the end of the crayon. That's because it's just a pure watercolour. All that will reconstitute back into colour. I just start at one side and work up. But I could, if I wanted, just to re-wet that colour in the box, in the pan, and then just go over the top of it, let it dry, and it should be fine. To throw away, it wouldn't be 10p for your photocopy paper. It wouldn't be 10p if you bought a sketchbook and took a few pages out. So I just thought I'd show you what sizes you could use. I mean, the world's your oyster, really. I use, because I work fine and I don't work too wet, it's perfect for watercolouring, for colouring in, because you can have some really nice watercolour effects. And you cannot work very wet in this size with a really fine paintbrush. So this was a £1 shop find as well, which I was very impressed with. And I love the colour, the cream colour, and the quality is very, very good. I don't know who originally did it, but it's very, very good. But the patterns are quite intricate. But this was all done with the 3 colours. Of the greys, because my rabbit's grey, and I know people have done this one in beautiful colours, but I bought it for my daughter, but I wanted to do this one, and I wasn't sure what it would look like because I've seen the vibrant colours, and I was very, very sceptical of doing this one because I wanted it to look like my disabled rabbit. So that's taken quite a batting, but all I have to do is to find the gunmetal and scribble over the top, and it'll be as good as new. And there's a lot of water. I mean, it took me, I was all day with that grey, so I've really taken quite a lot off. And it's still done quite well. And that's the most I've ever used one. So it proves that you can still colour all day. And the grey one here is the grey one, so it's hardly been touched. And then the pale grey one, the silver grey one. And then that's the gunmetal, which I didn't think my rabbit was a gunmetal bunny, but it actually looks like him. So I hope that's been helpful. All this, I can't even lift it, all this and twice as much more, including this as well, are all in here. And it was mainly because my hands were poorly and taking tops off and opening things and dropping things. So I can flick to anything I want, take the colour off, colour with it, then flick to the next colour, decide, oh, well, I like that blue, which is the Caran d'Ache, next to, and I love the geranium of the watercolour watercolour pencil. If I was doing that normally, I'd have to go into my box of Caran d'Ache and root out a blue, use that one, and then not in my wildest imagination would I then go through my Derwent watercolour pencils, which I think the yellows are on top of the beautiful box. But if I wanted a green, I think they're on the bottom layer, so I have 2 layers to pull out of this beautiful wooden box. And then I have to use the pencil. The other beauty of this is these are slightly muted, that you can get the full colour. If you scribble the pencil on, you can get the full colour, but this is lovely because you get some beautiful watercolours. Whereas if you touch the end of a pencil with a paintbrush, it's instantly, you don't have control of the colour. It's a bit like a palette. So because you have the paper palette, you have a little bit more control over what colour goes onto your page, and then you can water it out, because you can water it out on your watercolour paper. You just don't want to water too much on your paper palettes. These have got some hard backs if you wanted a posh one, or something that you could then attach your paintbrush to inside and it would be protected. Then these load from the top. Now you could cut them and have one on either side and stick, because it's plastic, you could stick your card in here, your sketchbook paper with your colours on. You could stick that to there, cut that one, open it up, and on the other side cut another one. But I think you would get 400 or 500 colours in there, which really, you don't need any more than that. But it depends on your stash. You might just want to have this little tiny. This one I worked out that you could get 72 Derwent pencils and 72 Inkten pencils by using one page, and all you're doing again is you can get 72 watercolour pencils, and you could have all the Caran d'Ache and 72 Inktens just by having 12 on each page. Then if you wanted to double that, so what you could do is put that into there, and you could do one of two things. You can open it up, and when you open that up, you can have 12 colours there. You can have 12 colours there, because when you're shutting it onto there. And then you can have, which is why I left this like this, because you can do your colours on 2 sides of paper. So you would have your colours here protected by that sheet, and your colours here protected by that sheet. That would give you nearly 300 colours in that size. And then you could have your sketchbook, and that would go in your pocket. And you can have some lovely little fine pencils and little, although this is a lipstick one, you get the paintbrushes, the watercolour paintbrushes, which are the same concept, with a nice strong rubber band, and that would look. And you could go out and do whatever you wanted and have 200, 300, 400 colours in there, which I think is amazing. It's the carting all that around with you. Right, I we'll try and make another video about how I actually put one together, because I'm going to make one for my daughter for university. So I hope you found that interested, and thank you for watching. If you'd let me know what you think of how I do things, because I'm quite new to this and not sure what I'm doing yet. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching.